we got this other topic that popped up on my timeline, courtesy of the Business Techno um, Instagram account. You should definitely check them out. They were really, at the forefront in terms of highlighting and exposing some of the more unscrupulous characters within the techno scene or business techno scene who were willing to kind of put everyone's health at risk at the peak of the pandemic and go and do these plague raves. Obviously, the perception around plague raves has changed somewhat over the months and years that preceded it, but overall, it was good to get an insight into kind of seeing, you know, the shittiness levels of some of these big DJs, so that you weren't really kind of pinning your hat on the fact of them being good human beings, and you're just maybe following them as a DJ, right? You're a fan of what they do in terms of their artistry, but you're not falling or kidding yourselves that these are actually nice people that you'd want to hang out with. You know what I mean? Outside of them playing a set, like that's it. It should just end. I've always said, I've come to the conclusion, even myself, because I used to sometimes be that person who'd kind of fan out at these type of people. It's especially once you start DJing yourself and once you start maybe promoting your own events, it really demystifies DJing, because I've always said it's the kind of lowest bar of entry to make it in the music industry, because it's not really an instrument. It's really easy to learn, and with the modern technology out there, you don't really need to be technically proficient to get anywhere in DJing. You just need to be, I would say, hardworking, persistent, maybe have some sort of gimmick or shtick that you can use to your advantage, work your ass off, of course, network, all that stuff, and you can get there. But in terms of the ability to play other people's music in loud spaces and whatnot, the barrier for entry is super, super low. And maybe because of that, it kind of creates some monsters, some level of entitlement, because everybody in there deep down knows that the job anyone could do. It's similar to like fashion industry. The fashion industry, I've always said, is full of cunts, because for the most part, outside of the actual designers who make the clothing that goes on a runway and some of the people who work behind the scenes to make or to produce and manufacture the clothing, everyone else is replaceable. You could find somebody on Instagram or on Twitter who could do a styling job for most of these big brands out there if they were given the time to learn and to basically have the right people around them. You could give the right person on Twitter and Instagram the possibility to write for Vogue magazine or these kind of places, and they would do a pretty decent job if they were given the access to go to these shows and access to talk to these designers and all that malarkey. Like, it's not that hard to do. So maybe most of the people that you'd meet in fashion who are cunts, like like I said, like the writers, like some of the stylist people, like all the kind of middlemen type people are cunts, because they know deep down that, oh, anyone could take my job. And maybe that's why some DJs come across like that too. Maybe that's a reason, or the overinflated, fees they get paid. The fact that everyone kind of, especially in the UK, stands there and looks at them and puts them on a pedestal in terms of actually, instead of actually dancing and enjoying the music they're playing, they kind of stare at them and are more fans of the person as opposed to, boy, the ability to play good music. All that stuff might be a part of it, but there's an interesting story that kind of happened over the weekend that might illustrate more of what I said, and also might throw up some interesting questions in terms of how this person conducts themselves. So this was a post that Business Techno obviously highlighted to me, and it was regarding this DJ called Bambi, who had been called in last minute to support the Blessed Madonna, formerly known as the Black Madonna. And as I posted on the title of this image GUR thing that I did, right? Image UR, sorry, what you call it, gallery thing that I did, or the screenshot of her Instagram story. Is the Blessed Madonna racist or a cunt? There are two distinct things here, because I've got the feeling this story just proves that she's probably more of a cunt and a shitty person as opposed to a racist. But maybe you guys have a different interpretation on it. So let's read through the story. So this is a screenshot taken from Bambi's Instagram account. Her Instagram account is BAM_BII. So it says as follows. While I usually opt out of sharing explicitly online, last night was such a literal microcosm of the larger issues faced by black women in electronic music. I feel I have to be transparent. 3 days ago, I was offered a booking for a DJ producer friend, for a DJ slash producer Fred Again's team to play alongside him and notable white techno house DJ Bless Madonna. Like I just said, notable white techno house DJ Bless Madonna. I would say she's more house than techno, but it doesn't matter what order it goes in. Formerly known as the Black Madonna. By the way, until the petition was circulated for her to change her name, which was, again, a bit of a faux pas in that regard, but I can understand why she's hesitant to change her name, but in terms of what was going on in society at that time, waiting for a petition to change it was a bit mad. But anyway, we move. I accepted the gig and the promotional material with my name on it, shared on it. And promotional material with my name on it was shared publicly. The day of, I was notified by the organizers that my set was at 2 a.m. and that the event would shut promptly. So it would shut completely at 3 a.m. After driving, why can't I read aloud? What's wrong with me? After driving out nearly an hour to the venue, I arrived, approached the DJ booth to check in. Immediately, I was stopped by Fred's manager, who told me I would instead be playing at 2:30 or even at 3 a.m., even though she was told the event's going to close at 3 a.m. Even though he informed another DJ the venue would def shut at 3 a.m. So she's getting mucked about a bit here. When I went to check in with the venue, they confirmed that 3 a.m. shut-in time. When I approached the booth again, I tried to directly ask both Fred and Blessed Madonna my set time, and they literally ignored me, and then began to rudely address me, saying different times with clearly no intention of letting me play to what was now a very big crowd. Because again, it's the end time, peak time, and I'm assuming she's also saying in this kind of without saying that she also brought a bit of a crowd down there too. So they're coming to see me. There's people there obviously enjoying your set, but let me play. I left frustrated and then returned a third time. After ignoring my several attempts to speak, Fred suggested I just not play at all, despite me being booked by his team. Next screenshot. It's a simple concept that is unethical to book me, use my name on promotional materials, and then deliberately deny me the same opportunity as everyone else. But as the only black woman on the bill, being blocked from performing by two white privileged artists becomes so racist. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I get where she's coming from. It wasn't until the support of several of my friends I spoke to, several staff, and broke down how obviously problematic and racist the situation was, that I was permitted to play for 45 minutes. So it was only until that she decided to scream racism that finally they acquiesced and said, you know what, maybe you've got a point. This is bad. Literally, this is shit. Literally, this shit is ABCs. It's crazy to be in an era where we all know the black origins of dance music, but white people still resort to racist gatekeeping tactics to disregard black women in this realm. It feels important for me to share this because, on the principle of the fact that I know so many women in general, and particularly black women, are experiencing similar treatment or worse. In music, poor conduct is normalized via whiteness, patriarchy, or fame. Hmm. I'm really invested in shutting that down. I'm not letting anyone make me feel like an outsider in a sound or a culture that's inherently mine to express. The problem with that, though, the end bit, is that there are so many people out there willing to take that level of abuse and disrespect with a smile that it's pretty much impossible to change. Pretty much. Because it's ingrained in it. Do you know what I mean? From the way that agents act, bookers act, venue managers act, door guys sometimes act, there is that sense of I wouldn't say superiority, but gatekeeping, whatever it is. We decide your dreams, we decide if you make it or not. That it's pretty much impossible for somebody to come in on their own, even with a small collective, to change things. Because as soon as somebody gets opportunity to play somewhere, they'll suddenly forget all of these experiences they've had. Because this sounds to me like something that I went through coming up, DJ myself, where you just get mucked about because you're no one. In the eyes of the person that booked you, you're not somebody well known. You're maybe not as big as DJs, other people on the bill. You maybe aren't that well known to them personally. All these things can affect the way that they treat you. And the way that you maybe respond to it can also maybe affect your future possibilities to get more bookings. So you have to put up with a lot more bullshit in order to get more bookings, but then your pride and your ego will suffer along the way because you'll be treated like absolute shit. So it's a mad one to kind of get through your head. It continues here. Is there any more? Yeah, one more screenshot. Hey all, I just want to say I appreciate everyone's kind messages and insight. It's important that we treat this dynamic like it's everybody's problem. Getting the most horrible messages about playing the race card and now being called names, lol. Let me be clear. I've told you it 3 times over. Asia once. I am familiar with being the only black person on the bill, dealing with promoters and DJs and audiences that have rarely come into contact with black people. I'm not overly sensitive, nor have I ever called anyone out by their name online before, which I get and understand. But in general, to go back to the title of this post and what I wanted to talk about, is Blessed Madonna a racist or a cunt? I think this is more cunty than it is racist. I think there's a lot of kind of layers to this going through. Like I said before, as not becoming DJ myself, I've dealt with issues when you're coming up and you're trying to make your name where people just don't treat you with any respect. Sometimes you get denied entry at the door because they don't believe you're the DJ. Your name's not on the list, and even if it's on the list, they kind of give you hassle to get in. That could be, again, based on who I am, based on my color, based on my whatever it may be. But most of it, I would say, has to do with the fact that I'm just not known. As soon as you're known, because I've seen what happens when somebody that is known says that you're cool and how everyone changes. And I know that it's not a race thing, because if it was a race thing, it wouldn't matter what someone says, you're still going to spit in my face. But the fact that people change and legitimately show you their asshole and tell you to go raw dog shows me that it's mostly just an image thing, a clout thing, which is annoying, but it kind of is what it is. And you have to play it to your advantage in some way. So I've got denied at the door in when I was booked online, booked to go there. I've had things where you go to arrive to go play, you do your set, and at the end of the gig, the DJ then the promoter suddenly disappears and refuses to, or kind of just simply outright refuses to pay you. Um, DJs that you're meant to be playing after, because they're bigger, they decide to go over the time, and you don't get to play for long. Crazy shit like that happens on a continual basis. And just in general, the idea that because I felt that, especially at the time when I was coming up, there was a period in time where I was always the one being called to do last minute fill-ins. And after a moment, especially when you do a couple and you smash it and you do a good job, and everyone says, oh, you do really well, we're impressed, we're going to keep you contact with you, but they keep asking you to do last minute things, it can sometimes get a little bit annoying. Like, why don't you give me an actual slot ahead of time so I can actually prove myself on the main stage, instead of always coming in as a last minute cover for somebody when they get too smashed or they can't, or they miss their flight or something. Book me as an actual person. But it's something you have to go through, and something you have to decide how much you're willing to put up with in order to kind of get to your dream. Everyone's got a different threshold that they're willing to kind of abide by, unfortunately, which means it's hard to get people to kind of band around and make some collective change going through. Then on top of this, with this kind of particular issue, I looked at the girl's Instagram, who's the DJ who's complaining about this, and she's a very attractive black girl. Again, this is me saying this, my point of view. Don't kill me for it. Very attractive black girl, also very slim, also very stylish, and also has from what you can tell online, again, don't know much about her, has a very outgoing personality. I would imagine part of the reason why this went this way at the time that she went there was because Blessed Madonna maybe just felt really inadequate, inferior, maybe felt some way that lady came up and tried to DJ and wanted to DJ at the same booth. Do you know what I mean? There was some level of like hate in there because of how much of a larger woman that she is, and that whole self-consciousness that comes up in it. Because whenever you look at Blessed Madonna's flipping Instagram, or you look at comments in the YouTube or her live stream, the thing people always talk about is her mixing style and maybe her weight. It's a common thing that goes up, or she's ugly or whatever it may be. So I'm sure those comments will get to you after a while, and it's something that you're obviously gonna have to deal with, battle with, especially it being an image thing, DJ nowadays, right? It's less about the music, less about how you play, and less about the digging and all that stuff. It's mostly about an image. Well, I'm not saying mostly, but image does play a big role in it. So it wouldn't surprise me if part of the reason why she was such a cunt to this girl was because of what that girl looked like. Because something tells me if that girl was also fat and also kind of maybe represented what Blessed Madonna represents in terms of her look and how her appeal and how she conducts herself, I don't think she'd have the same issue. That's the problem. And again, that speaks to a larger problem overall, right? It just speaks to a larger problem overall. But I think you would find more instances of this exact scenario being shared by other people who come up in the scene, regardless of what color the creed they are, especially even if they happen to be I'm sure there are other white DJs who will say, I've had the exact same experience with another white DJ. That would lead me to believe that it's less of a racist thing and more so just a cunty DJ dance music industry scene thing that happens again and again and again, because you don't have the necessary clout, fame, whatever name to afford you to afford you the decency of having people treat you with manners. That's how it's really shambolic. But honestly, I swear to God, I've been there myself. Even most recently, I've been at a very popular nightclub. I've been there as a punter, asking people certain questions, and maybe they're giving you, the cold shoulder, and then you bump into somebody that's well known, that knows you as a person and likes you. It's like, hey, Agostino, what's up? And you see the eyes and the posture of the person that gave you the cold shoulder and tried to big time you completely change because of that person who kind of, gave you that social proof and co-signed you as a person in real time. I've seen it. So I know these people are just cunts flat out because they don't want you to get in. So the gatekeeping thing, I agree with in her in that regard. For sure, there's the gatekeeping thing because they don't want you to get in, because they know if you get in and you do a good job, you could eventually take their spots, because that's the way the thing works. Whoever's the one that gets the best crowd reaction, they can guarantee you're going to sell tickets. The promoters and the venue bookers aren't really loyal in that regard. They just kind of go by the ticket numbers, the beer sales, the number of people that are there. It's pretty black and white in that regard. So if you get in, you're going to obviously take food off their table. You're going to take away a gig that they've had cushy for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. So they have a lot to lose by getting you in. But the flip side of it, I feel like, is that the scene is more vibrant and more alive, and also the chances and opportunities to play are more abundant than they've ever been. And sharing is actually the way that this scene survives, like actually opening your arms and opening the doors, allowing people access to get things that you had access that you found difficult to get hold of, is the way that this scene will continue to evolve, because fresh new faces will keep coming in. That's probably the reason why people latched onto the likes of Peggy Gou and all those guys and all those girls, sorry, when they came through, like Amelie Lenz and all these people, right? You think of the SPF DJs, the VTSS and stuff. All these people came through at the same time. Even, what's her name? I forgot the other one I was mentioning. But all those females that came through at the same time, maybe people latched onto them so quickly and they became so famous so fast because punters were just desperate for something new. They just kept saying the same old tired faces again and again and again. And after a while, it gets boring. So just seeing somebody fresh that looks completely different, it just reinvigorates you. But it took somebody to step aside, or maybe to open it, or to leave the door ajar as they were walking through, to allow those people to have a chance to get in as well. But I don't know how that changes, because it feels like, you know, from the way they act, DJing or being involved in the dance music scene must be one of the best jobs in the world, because they don't want to let it go. They don't want to let people to have chances. They don't want to bring you in. They book you for a gig. They let you arrive there, and you have to play a 45-minute set. By the time you're setting up and plugging in your flipping USBs and your headphones, and the person's playing their last tune, that's already 40 minutes. Like, it's an absolute piss take in that regard. It happens so often though. I've had it happen to me where you meant to be playing an hour, now you're playing 30 minutes. You're meant to be playing two, now you're playing 1 hour and a half, because the person's went over time. You don't get in because they don't have your name on list, and because the party's going on, you can't call the promoter to come get you in. Loads of really dumb, embarrassing things that don't make any sense, that should be dealt with before you get there in a professional manner, don't get dealt with, and then you end up having to, fucking fiddle with your balls outside as you're waiting to kind of get in with all your bags packed and stuff. It's absolute piss take. But I would say it's more of a reason, or more of an example of the Blessed Madonna being a cunt than it is her being racist. But maybe I'm not looking at it the right way. So if you guys have read that story and you think differently, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Leave me a comment down below and let me know.